Welcome to the Introduction to AIM webinar. I'm so glad you could join me today. I'm going to spend the next 45 or 50 minutes or so just giving you an overview of AIM, what it's all about. So we'll get started right away. I'm Wendy Maxwell. I'm a language teacher, mostly French. I train teachers as well to use the methodology that we call AIM, and I'm the author and creator of the methodology. I've written many, many resources to help teachers implement the methodology as well, and my contact information is there if you would like to email me anytime. So today I'm going to talk about how AIM, which stands for the Accelerative Integrated Methodology, rapidly develops proficiency, and it really does. I've used it myself for many years, and many thousands of teachers all over the world have also used it in many different languages. And I'd love to hear what grades and languages you are teaching or intend to teach. Um, it really helps me frame this webinar around who is attending. So if you don't mind writing in the chat, that would be very helpful. And perhaps how you heard about AIM. I'd love to hear about that too. Perhaps you're using AIM right now. But knowing what grades and languages you teach will really help me know, what videos to show more than others, depending on who's attending. All right, so AIM, how it began. Well, as a former French immersion teacher, then moving into teach core French or FSL. And Jasmine, I don't know if you teach in Ontario or BC or perhaps outside of Canada, Alberta. You could let me know as well. Or Manitoba. We have lots of teachers in all those provinces using AIM right now. Ah, in BC. Perfect. Okay, so we're in the same time zone over here. Um, all right, so I was an immersion teacher for several years and wasn't actually the best teacher. But in any case, I was very passionate about using French and because I'd just been living in Quebec and I wanted my students to speak French and only hear French. So I did that with my students, and then I moved from teaching immersion into a core or FSL situation and in Toronto. And it was a really a school where the parents were very supportive, and the kids were average to above average. It was a private school, and so I thought, oh, well, this will be great. The kids who've had 7 years of French every day for 30 minutes, they're going to be fantastic. Well, they weren't fantastic. They couldn't understand a word I said when I spoke to them. They couldn't write a sentence, much less a story. They couldn't speak at all. And I thought, this is just shocking. After 7 years of French every day, 30 minutes a day, like 2.5 hours of French every week, they still didn't speak French. I could not believe it because I learned French through high school and, I could speak French by the end of it. But little did I realize that, only about 4% of the population learns French that in a way that's sort of thematic or grammar based. Most students don't learn French that way, and which is what my thesis advisor told me. So, okay, so AIM has helped a lot of teachers learn to speak French better or learn to speak French, period. I mean, as long as you've had a little bit of perhaps years ago, some high school French, that's helpful. But AIM has really built the language skills of many, many teachers. I give workshops in Edmonton to many teachers, and those teachers, many of them are classroom teachers. They teach many other subjects. French is not their main subject. They barely had, just some high school French, and they've learned French alongside their students because the way AIM works, it works this teacher has to take himself or herself right down to where the students are and build up from there. So you can only use the vocabulary as you introduce it. So you are only practicing the words that you have learned for that day and every previous day. So it is a very, very useful approach for teachers who have minimal language skills. So let's have a look at different classes using AIM all over the world. Oh, just one moment. I just need to share with sound. Sorry. Gotta do this because it often will not, you won't hear the sound. There we go. Okay.
Everyone will do the song
Non, ta grand-mère. Parce que c'est la grand-mère de Chaperon Rouge et la mère par Chaperon Rouge. Alors c'est ta grand-mère.
fantastique. La classe toma. Yo tomo.
Una persona importante. Importante o importante? Importante. Importante. Entonces, yo no hablo con tú. Ok.
Contigo.
Oh, sí.
我要找一个歌手，小鸡住在农场里，一天小鸡出上学，一个小国家在小鸡的桌上。怎么了？哎呀，天塌了，天塌了！怎么了？你去哪里？天塌了，天塌吗？
All right, so that just gives really a very brief overview of the methodology. Um, and it's you don't see everything certainly about AIM, but it just shows you a little bit of what an AIM classroom might look like. So just want to welcome, we have another participant here today, Christabel. Thank you for joining. And if you wouldn't mind writing in the chat what grades you teach, what languages you teach. So thank you, Jasmine, for writing that you teach core French in BC, and yeah, so definitely, core French typically focuses a lot on reading and writing. The teacher often didn't speak in French, even although I learned French well, my teacher did not speak a lot of French in class. So AIM is all about making sure that students are immersed in the language so that they develop a strong proficiency. Even if it's a basic proficiency, it is strong and it is in there. Um, so AIM is a comprehensible input-based approach. It has a content and language integrated learning focus, or CLIL, which means that we teach language not just for language sake, but we teach language through another subject area. And that subject area for me in AIM is an arts and literacy-based approach, which I find that students find very engaging, there's a lot of active learning. And the students are always producing the language, and you'll see why. They're singing, they're dancing, they're acting, and you don't need to know any dramatic art skills at all. It's just very basic. But they have a lot of fun with it, and they're really learning a lot. So our primary goal is to develop authentic proficiency as outlined in the CEFR. So I think I'm just going to skip over. Oh, there we go. So AIM's what AIM does best, excuse me, is a quick start methodology that gets students up and running in the language very, very quickly. Within just within an hour or so, within 15 minutes, the students are starting to speak, led by the teacher. And AIM isn't tied to a specific curriculum, but we align it with many curriculum guidelines all over the world, including BC, Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba. And so, it is aligned very well with all of the curriculum in Canada and the actual in the US, CFR. So, and it usually meets or exceeds the expectations of those curriculum guidelines. It's multidisciplinary. It is backed by many research studies on how the brain works. So I'm happy to share that information with you. It's used all over the world. It started in Canada and is now used widely in the Netherlands, in Australia, in the United States, and various places in Europe, and yeah, just in all over the world. and it started in around 2004 in a private school, as I mentioned at the beginning, and sort of went out into other private schools in Toronto and then beyond. And now most of the schools that use AIM all over the world are not private schools, they're public schools, but we're still adopted by many private schools as well. There are, as I mentioned, a large percentage in the Netherlands and Australia, and a recent study out of the Netherlands, out of the University of Groningen, found that students in AIM classes outperform students in other programs in all language skills. And AIM was this research on AIM was voted the best research paper of the year in the Journal of European Second Language Association, the JESLA. The Dutch students are rated the best in the country, those AIM students, and there are students in various provinces and states that have been winning national competitions. So I'm going to go over the key components of the methodology, which include the use of a unique technique called the gesture approach, high frequency vocabulary called pared down language. We focus on, as I mentioned, a theater, literacy and arts-based approach. So we start with stories, they become theater pieces. We tie this to music and dance and creative drama, and then language manipulation activities stem out from the use of that story. And then, of course, from day one, we want students to start to transfer what they're learning to spontaneous communication to build that strong foundation for proficiency. So let's start with the gesture approach. We want students to simultaneously see, hear, say, and sometimes kinesthetically embed vocabulary. It not only makes comprehension and recall easy, but it also really develops students' proficiency. So what happens is the teacher gestures a word like bonjour. And Christabel, I'm not sure if you teach French or Spanish or another. I'm happy to give, show you examples or give videos if you teach a different language. So if you don't mind just writing in the chat what you teach, what grades you teach. French aussi, okay, très bien. And that's great. So you can let me know what grades and where you teach if you like, but of course, knowing you teach French is very helpful. And core, or I guess it's core French or FSL. Okay, so when students are seeing, hearing, saying, and kinesthetically embedding sometimes the vocabulary, what's happening is, you're both from BC. We're all from BC. So what happens is the information you're giving them, like bonjour or viens or ici or whatever it might be, is stored in different parts of the brain. And so what happened when that happens, it makes recall easy because it really, really sticks. And so what you're doing is you're gesturing and the students say the word. Sometimes we ask the students to gesture, not always, but it is a very effective way to rapidly help students not only understand what I'm saying, because if you don't speak, for example, well, let's say Mandarin, and I said ni hao, well, that's an arbitrary sound. You might think, well, is she talking about her knee or how, something how? And no, it's actually ni hao. So it's hello. So when you link it to a gesture, it immediately is understood. So there's no translation or not much necessary. So let's have a look at a couple of classes, one AIM, one not AIM.
Aujourd'hui, je suis très excitée parce que la semaine prochaine, je vais visiter mon ami qui habite à Winnipeg. C'est vrai, je suis née à Winnipeg et toute ma famille habite à Winnipeg. J'ai 2 sœurs et j'ai ma maman et mon papa qui habitent là. Alors,
so it's nice. The teacher's speaking only in French. The students are listening. We don't know if they understand, but they're listening and she's sharing something about herself. So that's lovely. We're trying to connect with the students, but that's not what an AIM classroom looks like. This is what it looks like.
pardon? Winnipeg. Excellent. Alors, je vais continuer maintenant. Est-ce que tout le monde sait ou ne sait pas que je suis né à Winnipeg? Je
So again, the teacher is gesturing. You can hardly hear the teacher speaking. She has introduced, of course, all these words and they've built over time students' ability to identify those words. And instead of the teacher speaking, it's the students who are speaking in a named classroom, which really is a wonderful opportunity for students who are weak or shy to get that practice with the language without having to feel that they're singled out or but so you're getting everyone to have equal practice. So what are the words that the teacher is gesturing? Well, we call it pared down language. They're high frequency functional words that we simplify for French teachers. We simplify them, the verbs, to make sure that they're easy and easy to acquire. We regularize the stem of the verb. AIM is very verb centered. I do teach a lot of nouns and adjectives and linking words like prepositions and questions and so on, but it is a very verb centered vocabulary that we teach the students because I really believe verbs are very, very important for the development of proficiency. So we regularize the stem of the verb by only teaching at first the third person singular form. So we have veut and va and peut and doit and aime and écoute and regarde. So it doesn't matter if the verb is hard to conjugate. It's that one form that we teach. So if you don't speak French well, that simplifies for you as well. That form works for je, like je veux, I want. Tu veux, you want. Il veut, he wants. Elle veut, she wants. On veut, we want, instead of nous, that requires voulons. It's a completely different sounding word. Or tout le monde veut, instead of maybe vous, voulez. We're just sticking with veut. And then la classe, veut is another way of saying it as well. Nous or vous, replacement for nous or vous. The words are very high frequency. I did a lot of action research with my students and research with high frequency language studies to come up with this pared down language. And we ensure that it's repeated. So pleasant repetition is an important component of AIM, and we do use cognates as well, of course. Naturally, all French teachers do that. So what AIM does is it flips the typical linguistic power structure. So the teacher will make sure that she adjusts the words based on, as I mentioned before, based on what the students know. So you always are sharing the same vocabulary. Some French teachers are, C2 level. They have this much vocabulary. They can use the subjonctif du passé conditionnel antérieur with ease, but it's not easy, and if you're teaching language to a beginner student in grade 1 or grade 5 or even a 95-year-old, if they don't have a foundation, it's useless to try to teach them this high level information. So we keep it really simple, almost like baby talk. So we keep it simple at first, and then we make it very comprehensible, and we're always respecting where the students are at any given time. So now we have our gestures and our language, and how do we contextualize it? Through a literacy and arts-based approach, as I mentioned. And David Booth, who was a mentor of mine at the University of Toronto, OISE, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, he would travel the world helping teachers who teach literacy, English first language, and he would say that the best literacy approaches go in, out, and around a story, delve deeply into a story rather than trying to do so many stories, work on one story over a long period of time, which I find is just ideal for a foreign language environment because the students don't have much language and they need that context. So that's exactly what we do in AIM. We take a story and we delve deeply into it. We talk about it. We dance about it. We sing about it, we do activities based on it, and we retell it and we extend it. So this is what David Booth wrote. Children new to a language find in a story context for understanding. It's not word lists that command their attention, but the lives of characters that fill the tales they read or listen to, and in the literary stories they meet. And how painful it must be for those children alien to a language to sit day after day without feeling connected to what's happening in the classroom. And yet, through storying, how quickly they enter the activity, making sense of what's happening, building their own versions, listening, telling, retelling, talking about, reflecting upon, responding. So that's exactly what we do in an AIM classroom. So let's have a look at part of a French.
Le guépard arrive à la maison du lion. Il parle avec lui.
Monsieur Lion, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Il ne pleut pas depuis longtemps. Tout le monde a très soif. C'est un gros problème. Est-ce que tu peux nous aider?
D'accord, Guépard. Tu dois aller à l'arbre Ungali, un arbre magique qui est loin d'ici dans la forêt. Tu dois dire le nom de l'arbre et après ça, l'arbre peut aider les animaux. Dis à l'arbre que tout le monde a soif parce qu'il n'y a pas d'eau. N'oublie pas, c'est l'arbre Ungali.
Oh, merci, Monsieur Lion. Merci. Je cours à l'arbre maintenant. Au revoir.
Okay, so that's an example of a French story. We have many different songs and rap.
La classe commence et tout le monde est prêt. On doit parler seulement en français. Mais si quelqu'un parle en anglais, cette personne n'a pas de carte et ça c'est vrai. Ça c'est dommage, mais on espère aussi que tout le monde décide d'aider ses amis. En français, on parle tellement bien. Notre rap est terminé, oui c'est la fin.
So as you can see, we have resources for students right from kindergarten, grade 1 through to grade 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this one is for grade 9 and up. And here we have a dance for elementary. Yeah, so that's just a dance based. That's just a dance based on one of our different stories for the kit. And so at the end of every kit, the students can present the dance. They can present the story, the acted as well at an assembly, or you can film it or to other classes, however you wish. So now we take this story where context becomes intimately knowledgeable. It is so the students come to know intimately well this story because they're acting it out and they're working on activities. So I developed these language manipulation activities that help really exploit in full the students' knowledge of this story, helping them to develop independently an ability to manipulate the language on their own based around the content and context of the story. So eventually, by the end of the kit, the students are writing their own stories, a retelling of the story, and then an extension of the story. It's quite amazing how the students are able to do this, even within one or certainly within two-step kits. And our main goal, as you can see, is for them to be able to do this, to speak spontaneously, to use the target language only, even if it's very simple, and to write creatively. So we've had a lot of teachers who've used AIM, whether they are kindergarten immersion or francisation or ILF teachers from Francophone boards with students who don't speak French well, or right up through to adults. Gary Karkin used it to teach English to his students at the University of Southern New Hampshire University. It's been used all over the world.
If I had to choose, one thing that distinguishes AIM classrooms from more typical core French classrooms, it's the level of emotional investment that kids have in the process and the fun that they're having. And again, that's fuel that drives the learning process.
So they're very keen and they can apply. I guess the most remarkable point is that they can apply everything or a lot of what they've learned in a context, in everyday life context.
And what we didn't anticipate would happen was that students in grade 4 with a sibling that it was in grade 7 were going home at night and actually speaking French in sentences at the dinner table. And the feedback was very impressive from the parents that all of a sudden their kids were having conversations that they couldn't follow in French at the dinner table.
So it's wonderful to see when students take their knowledge of language, of the language home, out of the classroom. It's just a wonderful thing to see, as I have experienced myself. So as students are writing their stories and working in partners and groups in the classroom, this is what it looks like.
Oui. Et pas de mettre en salle et déchirer.
This is a Vancouver classroom, by the way.
Est-ce que ça, c'est la même histoire, mais dans les mots différents? Oh oui. Dans les mots différents?
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut
Mais
faire?
est-ce que tu fais en partenaire ou
Saute.
beaucoup? Est-ce que tu fais
Et très pauvre.
Est-ce que tu fais ça?
Est-ce que c'est sans? Non, ça c'est juste une
maison.
Et
tu fais ça?
Louis commence à marcher dans la forêt. Il espère trouver une amie dans la forêt. Elle a demandé
En train de... Oh, excellent. En train de... En 3 mots. En train de...
Après, il a triché avec un accent aigu. La petite chaperon rouge est partie le plus vite possible chez la grand-mère de chaperon rouge. Oui, est-ce que tu es...
Yeah, so they're just sitting at desks or tables and they're working in partners, usually partners. Sometimes if there's a odd number of students, it's a group of 3. But yeah, and we want students to really have opportunities to practice their oral language skills. And eventually students create their own raps and dances, as we can see here.
Action! Dans la classe des Français, les langues d'anglais disparaissent. Lundi, mardi, mercredi, jeudi, aujourd'hui. Monsieur Smith a de l'aide en travail dans le cahier, mais aussi en adapté et santé. Et classes de français et amusant. On est fini, mais non.
Okay, so you can see these grade 8 boys, and typically, well, not typically perhaps, but often grade 8 boys aren't that thrilled about going to French. But you can see they're really proud of what they've done and how they're doing. So it's lovely to see. AIM is really and truly very engaging, and students are also very, very excited about how much language they actually learn. I think one of the most frustrating things in language classes is after many years, students are not learning much French. And so they feel that French is a waste of time by the time they get to, junior high or high school. So, and I actually don't blame them, after all that time. So what AIM does best is it develops all language skills. And sometimes one of the most challenging is to develop the oral language proficiency. But what AIM does best is develop oral language proficiency. But because it develops oral language proficiency so well, if we're talking about English to French, the ability to write in French follows directly after that because they are reading and writing a lot through the scaffolded language manipulation activities, which allows them then to write creatively right away because they have the language in their head. They're able to say it out loud and orally. And um, so for example, this is one of my grade one students when I was in teaching in Ontario, and this is her first year of French. We had 30 minutes a day. That was in the school where I started to develop AIM, and they had 30 minutes a day of French. Um, and yeah, so this was after I developed AIM, and so it was in their first year. So the student is doing a story retelling of our story for the kit, and the kit lasts 50 hours. So basically, if you teach every day for 30 minutes, you're going to teach from September to the end of January, one kit, and then the beginning of February to the end of June, your second kit. But if you have only an hour and a half, you just do one kit a year. And so as you can see, the student wrote this story. For a story retelling, they're not supposed to use any of the sentences as they appear in the original story. They have to paraphrase, retell in their own words. So it really develops circumlocution, which is a very important skill in a foreign or second language. So that's that grade one student's writing. Now, of course, we do exactly, the aim is the same methodology, whether we use it with kindergarten or grade one or, adults. So here we have a grade 11 story retelling in Spanish. And of course, we're going to see a lot more accuracy, a lot better spelling, a lot more detailed. The story will be more detailed and much, much longer. But it's exactly the same process. They retell the story in their own words. And now back down to grade seven, same thing. They're already writing in English pretty well, so we could expect most of them are. But if they're not, then they're not going to be writing in French very well either. But they'll be all writing at their level. But typically by grade seven, students are writing. And so this one is a first year of French, writing La Bringali retelling. So that was that story that you saw, the African story that you just saw acted. Okay. And even Japanese in Australia, Japanese kits are used and they're already writing in the Japanese script. Now, they're not writing as much. It's in a different script entirely, but it's quite impressive what those students are doing over in Australia. After our story retelling, then we have our story extension. So, qu'est-ce qui se passe après? What happens after? What happens next? So this is a couple of my grade one students. After one had French with me in kindergarten, and one, it was her first year of French, starting French in grade one. And so, qu'est-ce qui se passe après, or what happens next, is all about taking the story where it ends. So, les trois petits cochons, the three little pigs, the wolf falls in the soup. What happens next? He's still hungry. What does he do? So then they continue the story. And the students wrote this. Après que le loup sort de les trois petits cochons, il va à la maison et dort, et se réveille, et marche à l'arbre, et court et marche. Monsieur Loup est très fou et content. Et le loup frappe à la porte de la fille amie. Il dit à son ami, est-ce que tu veux danser avec moi? Oui, je veux, je aime toi. L'ami dit, est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? Le loup dit, oui, oui, je veux. Le cochon est ici, dit le loup. J'ai peur, dit la fille amie. Court à sa maison. Oui, je veux aller à ma maison. Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? Oui, je veux aller à ta maison, dit le loup. Je veux faire une fête, dit la fille amie. Le loup dit, oui, 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 oui. So you can see a lot of transfer of the skills that they know in English for writing, but you can obviously see that the students would not be able to write this if they could not say this. So it continues along a little bit more. And we have creative writing from where students do story retellings of other stories. So in our high school kits, we ask students to read outside of the story for the kit and do a story retelling of that. And this is an example. Sometimes teachers have asked students not to write qu'est-ce qui se passe après, mais qu'est-ce qui se passe avant. what happens before. So what happened that led up to the story for the kid? And this student from Missouri in grade 8, second year with AIM, wrote about 1,000-word story to explain what she thought might have led up to the story. Okay. And we ask students to do story retellings. So not only in writing, as I just showed you there, but also orally. So this grade 2 student from Vancouver, 30 minutes of French 4 times a week, did this story. So we invite them to take their, well, they practice it in class. We give them opportunity to practice in class, but they also must, with a partner, I should say. But then when they go home, one of our assessment pieces is that they retell the story in their own words, just on their own phone or their parents' phone. And this little girl was sitting on her bed doing the story retelling on her phone. So they're not reading anything. They can be referring to images from the story, but they're not reading anything. And they're just retelling, but they cannot repeat the sentences as they appear in the original story. They have to retell it in their own words, which is a very important skill, as I mentioned.
Boucle violette. Personnage. Le narrateur. Boucle violette. Papa ours, maman ours et bébé ours. Un jour, il y a une fille qui s'appelle Boucle violette. Boucle violette marche dans la forêt. Les trois ours décident de marcher dans la forêt. Elles ont quitté la maison. Alors, Boucle violette marche, et marche. Alors, elle arrive à la maison dans la forêt. Boucle violette veut entrer dans la maison, mais elle ne peut pas. So, elle crie. Bonjour, bonjour. Est-ce que quelqu'un est là? Je m'appelle Boucle Violette et je suis très gentille. Boucle Violette n'entend pas de la voix. Alors, elle ne peut pas ouvrir la porte. Elle ouvre la fenêtre et saute dans la maison. Et elle dit, est-ce que ça c'est la chose de manger? Oui, c'est très vrai.
Okay, I won't show you all of it, but it does go on for about 10 or 15 minutes, which is actually a wonderful opportunity, which doesn't often happen, for sustained speech in another language. So let's just see how much time we have. Okay, so let's just have a look at this. The students talk, as proficiency improve, well, we have a three-step inductive approach to the teaching of grammar. And so students talk about the language in the language and we focus on les règles en rap rules to patternize the language. So here we go.
Corrige les erreurs. Le numéro. Tout le monde lit avec madame. 1, 2, 3. Est-ce que tu peux chanter avec il? Qui voit une faute dans la phrase numéro 1? Oui.
Chante doit être chanté parce que après peu, c'est l'infinitif.
D'accord. Tout le monde, on va répéter la règle et c'est la règle numéro 1. Tout le monde maintenant. Après, à, comment, pour ou de, doit, aime, veut et aussi peut. C'est mon va ou je vais, c'est l'infinitif qu'on doit utiliser. Fantastique.
Okay, so that's the third step of our three-step inductive approach. So do you have any questions, either of you, at the moment at all? Please don't hesitate to write in the chat if you have any questions as we're going along. You can write them anytime. I'll make sure I respond to them as we go through or at the end for sure. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask. So how do you learn to implement the methodology? If you're interested, we have, as I mentioned, our kits. Our AIM kits contain a program guide, a teacher's guide with fully described lessons, 85 lesson plan, which we have here, that show you from start to finish all the entry routines, the whole class activities, the leaving routines, and how to use the partner group activities in conjunction with the whole class activities. There are 5 step 1 kits, 5 step 2, 5 step 3, 1, 2, 3 step 4, 2 step 5, 2 step 6 kits for French. And we have extra kits as well for, oh no, that's not 2, that's 3 step 4, 3 step 5, and 3 step 6. And anyway, I think there are 26 in total. And we have various step kits for, of course, the kindergarten to grade 1. We have specific kits for immersion students. We have kits that are best for entry level, entry into AIM grade 3, 4. We have another step 1 kit best for students starting with AIM in grade 4, 5, 6. Another entry level kit for students starting with AIM in grade 6, 7, 8, and another entry level kit for students starting in grade 9 or 10 or 11, and then another entry level kit for adults as well, or grade 9. It could be used with grade 9, 10, or 11 or 12 as well. If students have only French for 2 classes per week, yes, you can, are they 30-minute classes or 20-minute classes or 40? 30. Yeah, you could, in 1 hour, you could get through a kit in a year. You might not be able to do absolutely, right through to everything in detail and have tons and tons of repetition, but you can definitely do all of it in 1 year. Um, yeah, so that's fine. There are many teachers who are using it um, with that much French. It's very common out here in BC. So yeah, and you just follow through the lessons um, and I was going to say something. I forget what it was. Oh yes, you wouldn't teach one kid over 2 years. That's just too much for both you and the students to handle working on the same story for 2 years. So yeah, you just complete the one kit. It's 85 lessons, 85 half-hour lessons. So I think that is that's based on 5 classes a week. It depends. Well, it actually works with more or less. So it's very flexible. AIM is very flexible, and you can definitely do a kit in a year with 2 30-minute classes. So in addition to the teacher's guide, we also have the partner group activities book with all the student activities. We have the big book as well as in hard copy and on the portal. We have posters and image cards which appear in hard copy as well as on the portal, which is our digital platform. We have assessment activities books that contain some little DELF tests if you wish. But when you have just 30 minutes twice a week, you really have to stick to the core elements of the methodology and not do any of the extraneous other recommended things. If you want to get the best results with AIM and you do have limited time, I would just focus on the very minimal, simple aspects of the methodology because you need that repetition of the core components to develop the proficiency. No, you never have to repurchase. You never have to purchase any student books. With the kit, you just can reproduce them forever. As long as it's just the one teacher. We don't want like 5 teachers in the school sharing a kit and everyone's, we give permissions for one teacher to reproduce those workbooks for always, as long as it's just one teacher, at least one teacher at a time using the kit. So we have language skill assessment package, and part of that package comes in the new edition kits as well. One teacher with as many classes as you wish. Yes, teaching that kit. Yeah, there are many teachers who've actually started with one kit and taught the same kit to many, many grades. And that's just fine because every kit starts with the same simple, high frequency, functional vocabulary. It doesn't matter what kit you've selected. Some teachers don't want to use the same kit, with grade 3 as grade 6, so they use a different step 1 kit for different grades. But if you don't have the funds, you can use the same kit for all classes. So as I mentioned, we have our portal, which is our digital platform. With the purchase of the kit, you get all of the resources, all of the videos of the songs, the raps, the dances, the play acted, the play gestured, all the gestures for your kit, all in the order that they're presented. You get an e-reader of the story read aloud with highlighted text. You get all of the projectable posters with the audio as well. And these are all the kits that I mentioned. So there, now we can actually look at them. Sorry, I couldn't remember how many of each level we had. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step one kits. 6 actually, because we have this adult one that can also be used with high school students. And 5 step two kits, 5 step three kits, 4 step four kits, 2, 5, 2, 6. Is there a way to assess a class to see if I should start them on a step one or two kit? If they've never had AIM before, you must start them with a step one kit, even if they've had 6 years of French or more. Because the step two kit assumes that you and the students know all the gestures from the step one kit. So that's probably the most important thing. But it also, they should be familiar with all of the AIM activities because we build on the activities that they become familiar with in the step one kit, in the step two kit. So it's, you just really must start with a step one kit. But thanks for that question. That is a very, very good question. Yeah, so you start with a step one kit. So you could start with, for example, if you have grade 4, you might start with Les Trois Petits Cochons. And then in grade 5, do Comment y aller, step 2. Then grade 6, move up maybe because it's a, for older students, Louis la Grenouille, step 3 kit. Then in grade, so 4, 5, 6, grade 7, you could do Un Frère Pénible, which is very appropriate for junior high students, and so on and so on. All right, so we have many correlations with ministry guidelines. In fact, the teacher who wrote the alignment for BC was an AIM teacher. So that's very interesting, and I'm happy to share that with you if you're interested. We have, in addition to the kits, it's really important that you receive training. So you can step into that first day with AIM being very confident. You know all the gestures, or most of them, almost all of them for your step one kit. You've practiced them as if you've been an AIM teacher. You practiced with me or the other facilitator, just practicing those gestures. And all of the activities. We go through all of the activities. We practice a play, we practice all the language manipulation activities. So you step into that first day with AIM with a lot of confidence. It's very, very important than trying to figure it out all on your own. So, we have various professional development opportunities. If you want to come to a live in-person session, we have our Summer Institute this summer in Victoria, British Columbia. We have our Fall Institute in Kelowna this summer. Fall, I'm so sorry. So summer's in Victoria, fall is in Kelowna, and then sometimes it's a full 2 day, and sometimes it's a one day and then followed by the asynchronous second day, which is what we're doing this summer and fall because a lot of teachers are finding a full 2 day just too much. So we come one day, we network, we connect, we get really lots of practice with the gestures and the oral activities. And then the second day, you get a code for the 5 different sessions on how to take AIM from how to develop students' written language skills. So it's just a continuation. It's the level 1 is a 2-part training, and as is level 2. And then we have the live online. So if you want to come to our Summer Institute in July, we have our Summer Institute, and it is a full 2 day online, and you receive recordings as well if you can't attend all of it or if you want to review it later. And so we have lots of asynchronous training as well. And that it's on demand. You can get it whenever you like. You can just buy it today or tomorrow and get started right away. You have 3 months access to the 10 different sessions that are recorded, and you can watch them and rewatch them as often as you wish. So we have specific immersion specific ones and core as well. How long is the training? Oh, I wonder if I answered that before you asked the question. Well, I'll just review that. So the training is equivalent of 2 days of each say 5 hours approximately of training. And so you can do the 2 days asynchronously, fully online, just at your own leisure, at your own pace. You can do 2 days live online at the Summer Institute. I think it goes from 8 to 2 or 8 to 9 to 2, 9 to 2, I believe. I'm not sure specifically of the hours, but it goes, too early from the morning to early afternoon. And that's 2 full days live online, and they're recorded, and you get the recordings to watch later as well. Or live one day in person in Victoria or Kelowna, and then the second day you watch asynchronously. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And please keep in touch. We have our lots of opportunities. We have our website. We have our AIM forum with all teachers all over the world who connect together. We have our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, AIM Facebook page as well, with lots of videos and shorts to watch if you wish. So well, if you're buying 2 kits and you purchase the training, you get a discount on 2 kits. But you don't have to have it for the training. You can buy it after the training if the training helps you decide what kit to use, or we can advise you if you'd rather have it before and have a look through, familiarize yourself. Some teachers prefer that. It's really what you prefer. You don't have to have it for the training, but there are some advantages to having it before and to bundling it with a couple of kits to get a discount if you think you're going to buy 2 or more. So. Are there any other questions? That's it for today. Any other questions at all? Gesture videos. The gesture videos come on the in the kit. When you buy a kit, you get all the gestures you need for that kit found on our portal. And you have the portal access for 2 years, and then you can just renew it every year. And we have many different options for pricing for kits. We've really tried to meet the needs of teachers. 10 years ago, we put out we raised our prices to $649 for the premium edition of the kit with the assessment books, the CFR books, and everything. And but recently we have pared it down to offering now a basic kit for $549 without the CFR and assessment book. And then we also offer that, and we have not raised prices in 10 years. So unlike a lot of places, prices have not raised. In fact, they've dropped. So we also offer the digital teacher's guide option with everything else. Everything else comes with it of a basic kit and for $499. So you have many different options there. All right. Well, if I'll follow up with a video with a link to the webinar today, and for the video of this webinar. And yeah, so happy that you could join me today. Thank you, Christabel and Jasmine. I really hope to see you perhaps in Victoria or in Kelowna or even online this summer. It's always nice to do it. Well, if you can't come live online or live and in person, there is the asynchronous version, but I love it when teachers join, either live online or live in person. It's just nice so that we can get together. So anyway, hope to see you and get you started with AIM and see what is really possible with the methodology. So thanks for joining today. And if you have any questions, you have my email. Just contact me anytime at all. Thanks again. Have a lovely evening. Au revoir.